All right, so it's us and lunch. How many of you are familiar with the jobs to be done theory or methodology? Oh, a good number of you. For those of you who aren't, don't worry. We'll give you a quick background, and then we'll turn it over to Greg to share a case study of how they applied the jobs to be done framework to dramatically reposition SnapApp. The jobs to be done theory was developed by the famed Harvard Business School professor Clay Christensen and his partner Bob Mesta to really figure out, why do 95% of new products fail? What can be done by corporations to juice the growth of new products and increase the success rate of new products as well? So the essence of the theory is that people don't buy products. They hire products to do a specific job. And the key is to understand what are those jobs that your products are being hired to do. And the foundation to the process is conducting deep, in-depth interviews with your customers to understand their needs, and as a result, discover what jobs do they want your products to do. And if your products can do those jobs better than any other alternative, then your product will be hired. If they don't do the job as well as some other alternatives, your products will be fired. So let's get this out of the realm of academia and talk about a real-life situation. Does anybody know what the #1 selling candy bar in the world is? Any ideas? Snickers. Snickers. Absolutely, it's Snickers. Snickers is the #1 selling candy bar in the world by a lot. But that wasn't always the case. For years and years, Snickers was a middle-of-the-pack candy bar, often positioned against Milky Way, Three Musketeers, and lots of other candy bars. It was viewed like a treat. Then they conducted the jobs to be done process, and they basically, what they did was they interviewed people just after they bought a Snickers bar. And what they found was, and what the job was that the Snickers bar was being hired to do was, right now, when we're all sitting here waiting for lunch, it's when people are hungry, they reach for a Snickers. Why a Snickers bar? Well, if you eat in a Snickers bar, unlike other candy bars, it sits like a lump in the bottom of your stomach, and it sits like a lump in your stomach for hours. So if you think about this, Snickers isn't really competing with Three Musketeer or Milky Way, it's competing with other things you reach for when you're hungry. And it just so happens that Snickers does that job better than a lot of other alternatives, which is why Snickers outsells the second best candy bar, namely Reese's, by over $1 billion per year. So you can think about that and think about what jobs your products are being hired to do. So I'd like to turn this over to my friend and client and colleague, Greg Achenbach, VP of Product at SnapApp, and he's going to share with you how we apply the jobs to be done framework to reposition SnapApp.
Yeah, great. Everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Mic levels are good. Don't you love the sound of your own voice? Isn't that awesome? Does anyone know who SnapApp is, what we do? You don't need to, I'm just kind of curious. All right, so our story, wrong way, starts with this. I ripped this out of the sales deck that we were using at the end of 2018. So this is essentially our externally facing messaging statement. So SnapApp provides transformative customer experiences through interactive marketing. We've been using a variation of this for the last couple years, and it's been working well. It does present some challenges though. Namely, interactive content means something different to everybody. I'm sure if I told you SnapApp is a B2B marketing platform that's used to create interactive content, I would get 30 different thoughts around what that actually means. Now that was great because it lets our sales team cast a really wide net, and we're able to accommodate for tons of different use cases, right? So we were able to really grasp on to, because my job as the head of the product, we built tons of functionality that could accommodate all these different use cases. The problem with this is more is not always better. And so what we started to notice as we got more and more adoption on the platform, one of the first red flags that something might not be going right is our new feature and product adoption wasn't hitting the targets that we were setting out. Anytime we would build something and release it, regardless of the scale, we were only really able to penetrate a small segment of our install base. So people who thought interactive meant more design features, we've released design features, we'd only get certain people to be able to adopt that. If we did things more on the data analysis side, only a small segment of the user base would install that. And when people don't use all of the things that you're releasing, you tend to churn more clients than what you want. The other thing that was really starting to impact us as a company was our team started to feel a little bit misaligned on what our vision was. Particularly the customer success and the customer-facing roles, when we're not able to onboard customers consistently because they have different expectations of what they're going to get out of the platform, that causes lots of different problems. So this is something that we've been wrestling with for a little while. And towards the end of last year, we started to think a little bit more about jobs to be done and how that could potentially help us. So why jobs to be done, and why did it appeal to us when we were trying to think about things that we could do to improve our performance and our growth? It really helped us hone in on our core issues. The biggest problem we had was really understanding the unifying thread of what our most successful customers are getting out of our platform. So we tried lots of different ways to get at this before, and the whole concept of jobs to be done and the interview framework that you learn as adopting it was really appealing to help us figure out who is hiring us for something we can actually deliver on versus who is hiring us for something that they shouldn't have in the first place. We've been at this for about 6 years now. We've got a decent amount of knowledge and credibility on how B2B marketers work. This let us kind of even extend that a lot further by doing these very intense interviews. We've got a really good baseline of like what most pain points of most B2B marketers actually are. And actually when we did these interviews with our customers, we found that it really helped us build stronger relationships with the clients. Because you're not asking them product feature functionality, you're not asking them how much money they would pay for something. You're really trying to get at like what are they struggling with as a marketer and how us as a company can potentially help them. We also seen it work. There is a lot of literature out there and a bunch of case studies about how transformative jobs can be done to companies. We've had the pleasure of actually meeting some of the creators of the framework, and we know it works. So this is why we were willing to give it a shot. So some stuff that we learned throughout this project. It's hard. Doing it for B2B is really hard. So as I mentioned before, one of the things that's great about jobs to be done is there's a lot of reference material out there around what it is. And I'll point you to a couple of specific examples at the end of this. 90 to 95% of it is B2C, right? So you get the Snickers example, there's a milkshake one that's really famous, there's a mattress one, there's a wine store one. It's really great. It's really easy to understand how somebody walking through Sam's Club is able to make the differentiation on which mattress they might buy and why they bought it that day versus another day. When you're dealing with B2B and it's a super complicated buying process, it's very, very different. So while there's a ton of material out there around jobs to be done and what it is and why it's so freaking awesome, there's no practical advice on how you can do it, right? And that's where like Neil was actually really, really helpful because we spent hundreds of hours researching this, reading things, testing out interviews, and we kind of got a little bit lost in the weeds, and having somebody who's done this before was really helpful to get us out of our own headspace and really figure out how to do this right for us. And the concept really isn't new. That's one of the other things that applied. Jobs to be done is another flavor of being customer focused. There's customer value, selling outcomes, solution selling, tons and tons of different frameworks that are all really about identifying the core of the problem. One of the great things about being hard is if it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. Throughout this journey, one of the things that I found talking to companies that have actually adopted this is so few of them are willing to talk about it externally because they view it as a highly competitive advantage to their products. One of the only B2B examples you'll be able to find out there if you start researching this stuff is Intercom. Intercom's really into this. They didn't start talking about this till 5 years after our project ended. because they did not want anyone else to be able to grasp onto this momentum that they were able to gather.
And so Greg talked about how hard it is for B2B. My firm has identified 6 different ways that B2B jobs to be done, namely what most of you folks are interested in, differs from most of the examples out there, the milkshakes, the condos, the mattresses out there. And so, first way is that you're dealing with a much more complex decision-making unit. You have to identify personas, you have to identify different stakeholders. Everybody has their own job to be done, and it's critical to be able to prioritize what those jobs are. 2, the jobs theory teaches to interview somebody just after they bought a Snickers bar. Well, those of us with B2B, we have long-term relationships with our clients, so it's very appropriate to interview them throughout their customer life cycle. 3rd, jobs to be done. I buy a Snickers bar at a 7-Eleven. You're one of a billion people that year that bought Snickers. I'm not looking to build a relationship to you. Those of us in the B2B want to use this process, as we did at SnapApp, to use that to build and launch and deepen your relationship with your customers. 4th is that if you just bought a Snickers bar, I'm not going to check you out on LinkedIn or even worry about your earnings statements. But with B2B, we went ahead and we really did a lot of research prior to each interview, which ended up driving and structuring the conversation that we had. And then B2C, they talk about just understanding the customer's buying. Why did you buy that Snickers? Well, we found when we asked that kind of question, we got very stilted answers, and each conversation ended very quickly. Greg offered a gift card of $50, and people were there all about the gift card. When we asked about their situation, their struggles, their challenges, their what's keeping you up at night type questions, we really engaged the customers, and the gift card became almost an afterthought. And they felt that very few other vendors were creating these kinds of dialogues, which once again was hard, but it was differentiating SnapApp.
Yeah, and fun about that, about 1/3 of the people said they didn't want to get it. So it was a really good hook to get them, but like especially our clients just didn't accept it.
And then finally, hey, you know, Snickers, it's like a lump in your stomach, you're hungry. Okay, it's fairly clear why someone buys a mattress here, but you can also get these slides. We'll be distributing those slides as well, but it's also hard to find a B2B jobs to be done. You know, we make it sound so easy. You go out there, you find out the job, and it just hits you right in the face. We spent a lot of time, not only in the interviews, but in the post-interview analysis, really trying to suss out what the jobs were. All right, Greg, take us to lunch.
Yeah, all right, so I'll take my time.
I could use a Snickers bar right now if anybody has one, so go ahead.
Yeah, so after you know, countless hours of research, doing about 30 interviews, spending hours and hours before the interview, hours and hours after each interview, like what did this actually come out with? What did we come out with for this? So the job that we actually found that people hire SnapApp for is to help marketers get the leads that sales want. We were about 5 interviews deep when we got this, and it was like, holy shit, like this is it. You know, and I go back to think about the whole purpose of this whole project was to find that the central truth behind what our most successful customers do, and it's this. Like I can go back and look at their product usage, look at their the stuff they've talked to our customer success teams for, the language they originally used when they bought us, and it all gets back to this. You know, their sales teams ignoring the leads that they're sending over, and they're actually trying to make a real impact on their business. So what we did with this, the first thing we did is changed our positioning statement. So instead of transformative customer experiences through interactive marketing, SnapApp helps marketers deliver the lead sales want by interacting with prospects to uncover intent. It's a lot more descriptive of what we actually do. Some of the other stuff that this helped us do as a company is much tighter internal alignment around our like the shared vision of what we're actually about as a company. It's stronger now than I think it ever has been in the 4.5 years that I've been in the company. All new positioning and messaging. We give a special shout out to Karo Sadowitz, who is our Director of Product Marketing, who spent God knows how much time coming up with this, so it's nice and clean, along with redoing our website and all of our other collateral. So if you want to know like how the rubber actually meets the road from a marketing perspective, I'm sure she wouldn't mind talking to you about it. We also completely revamped our sales playbook. We want to get to the value and the pain fast, right? So rather than just talking to them about like, why do they come to us, what trade show they're at, all that fun stuff that most sales teams do, like we deliver value in a very specific way. Do you have this pain point? And we architected our sales playbook to go along with that. Same thing with our customer onboarding approach. We sped the time to value knowing that the core value that we offer. So our entire onboarding process is now driving towards that moment. Also, the biggest impact this had on to me is streamlining the product features and roadmap. The first thing I did was remove about 50% of the functionality. So anyone who's come to us this calendar year has a significantly streamlined product that stops them from hurting themselves way more effectively than we ever have in the past. And everything that we built this year and everything that we're going to be building is now more tightly aligned with everything that we're doing as a company. We've also enabled us to have quicker and more productive conversations with our customer and prospects. Even when we have a prospect that doesn't have this and they happen to come to us because they like our logo or saw us on Twitter, we're able to close them out and move on to the next thing way faster than we've ever been able to before. So I think after all of this work that we've done, and this is not something we're done with, we're going to continue kind of adopting this, there's really two main steps that we've identified as like what is jobs to be done all about. The first is to be able to talk different. So talk more effectively about what it is you're doing as a company, and then build different. To be able to back that talk up, everything that we're doing in our platform we have to think about building it a little bit different. All right, so that's it. Couple resources we can point you to for anybody who's a little bit more interested in this stuff. The Bible on jobs to be done is this book called Competing Against Luck that Clayton Christensen wrote a couple years ago. It's highly recommended. He also has a summary and HB Harvard Business Review from September of 2016. If you Google jobs to be done, Clayton Christensen is probably the first thing that's going to come up. Neil did a really great podcast with Bob Moesta, who's kind of like the other founder of Jobs to be Done. You can check that out. Also, Neil and I are more than happy to talk to anybody about this, especially me. Like, this has completely changed the way I think about talking to customers, probably for the rest of my career. And because I've gone through all of the pain, I'm definitely willing to help save some other people that. And then one final thing is Neil runs this group called the Boston Product Executive Forum. It's a monthly meeting for executives in product management and product marketing. It's how I actually met him. So that's another great avenue to find like-minded people.
And the podcast is actually reachable through the Pragmatic Institute website. So you just go into the Pragmatic website, Google or search for Jobs to be Done or my name, you'll find the podcast. The Boston Product Executive Forum is for directors and VPs of product management and product marketing. We meet monthly for breakfast throughout the greater Boston area. If you've been to a meeting and you recommend others go to the meeting, please just raise your hand. So you can see we have several folks here who have attended these meetings, and speak to them about it. If you're interested, see me or Greg and give us a card and we can put you on the distribution list. Okay, I think it's lunchtime now.
Neil does not get to dismiss anybody.
Neil is very hungry.
I'm taking